Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you might be in the world. I have not yet opened this beer, but it already sounds like I have. The reason I have a beer with me now is because we've all been demonstrating just how much alcohol we have with us before we start. Full house this evening. Bruce is apparently celebrating a national day. He may be with us shortly, and no doubt we'll see a video on his channel, XJet or RC Model Reviews, all about that if not. But we are honoured to have in the room with us, well, actually everybody's very cool, and Chip Yates, holder of the manned electric flight speed record. Is that right, Chip? Have I said that correctly?
It sounds better since you're saying it with an English accent. So yeah, it sounds great.
What does that mean, and why did you do it? And well, why should we care? We should be talking about small drones, but you seem to be at the cutting edge of electric flight, and that's why we should care, I guess.
That's such a loaded question. Why should we care? I can't force you to care, but you know, when we look at drones, we're looking at electric motors. And I just play with bigger electric motors, same thing, different day. You know, we've got 193 kilowatt electric motor. It's about 258 horsepower for you English people in the current long easy. And then we've got a megawatt going into something else. So that's over 1,300 horsepower. So if you're into electric motors, you know, it's good stuff.
A megawatt, that already sounds better, doesn't it? It just sounds cooler. I mean, like $1 million. Just sounds much cooler straight away.
I like round numbers.
But Chip, you are, look, I've got to be so careful just not to show my nerdiness here. Don't get my nerds out too much.
Too late.
I've flown too late. It's too late. You're right, Philip. But I've flown the aircraft. I've played with it in software in the loop in X-Plane, and it seems to fly really, really nicely. And I wondered how accurate that was. But how did you arrive at that? Were you a pilot before you started flying the thing, or did you become a pilot to fly the thing?
Yeah, I was not a pilot. You know, why trouble yourself with getting credentialed when you could be building an airplane instead? You know, so it was all quite last minute. We built the airplane, and as we were building it, I was trying to get my pilot's license in the evening, and it all came together in 2 months. And yeah, I got in the airplane with 50. I think I had 56 flight hours total, and got in and. Yeah, first flight was good, and second flight, I was the first flight that ever broke 200 miles an hour, but it ended in an emergency, no power landing, and that's just trying to figure out electric technology is pushing the limits and seeing what happens.
So how much long ease time did you have before you did that?
Zero.
So your first long ease flight was an electric long ease flight.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I bought the airplane in Texas. Someone else built it, and it had a gas engine in it. And I towed it across the country with some volunteers from Texas to California. We took the gas motor out, put the electric motor in. I couldn't fly it home because I wasn't a pilot. It was flyable. So we took the wings off, put it on a U-Haul, a little caravan, and drove it across the country. And straight away, just put the electric motor in it. I never flew it with a gas motor in it.
Did somebody test fly it before you?
No. Yeah, it was funny. Dick Rutan, you've heard of Dick Rutan. You've heard of Burt Rutan, who invented the long easy. His brother Dick is an amazing test pilot. Dick is one of my advisors, and he was highly advising me not to do any of this, and that was his advice. and he offered to test fly it, and so I thought about that, and I thought the wisdom of having the great Dick Rutan fly my airplane versus me. Was the risk of
wait, how's that going to work? How's that going to work?
I don't want to be the guy that killed Dick Rutan. You know what I mean? Oh. It's like, hey, how did this guy die? Oh, and Chip Yates' electric bullshit airplane. You know?
I've definitely got to open my beer now. Now that I've heard that, that's extraordinary. So you had. Let's just recap. Your total flight time was 50 odd hours, and you'd never flown a long ease.
Exactly. All I'd flown was 172s. Yeah. So my flight instructor had to sign me off to fly a 172 as a student up to the desert, to the Mojave Desert, where I got my pilot's license. And then within about 8 days, then I did the first flight of the long easy.
Of course, because that's exactly how records and boundaries are pushed.
You got to do it.
So was this your first? Was this your first plane? Go on, Louis. Go on.
This is clearly an advance on the urban mobility vehicle that we need. Is guys going nuts and pushing the boundaries.
But that's the bottom line, isn't it? That's why I wanted to talk to Chip, was to talk about, electric motors, urban air vehicles. And so we're seeing a lot of renderings and a lot of this is how it's going to work and this is how it's going to be, but no flipping person's flown the things anywhere or done anything with them. And okay, so this isn't an eVTOL and air taxi per se, but it's the motor, speed controller, all the working parts. But hang on, let's just wind back a little bit. Is this your first outing with electric anythings then?
No, I built an electric motorcycle and raced it in 2011. It's getting a long time now. Built it in 2010, raced in 2011, and I rode up Pikes Peak with that thing and went to Bonneville and set records and all that stuff. So that was my first electric vehicle. And we gave it to a museum, and then but we took the motor out of it. So we donated this motorcycle with no electric motor because the motor, was 30 grand or something like that. We couldn't afford another. So we took the motor out, gave it to a museum, and then put the motor in the Long Easy.
But why? But you weren't. But why the leap then to the flying part of it?
Well, that's just natural, isn't it? If you've gone 200 miles an hour on a motorcycle, then what's better than that?
You got to go up.
Yeah. Come on, Gary. If you ever driven a motorcycle at 200 plus miles per hour, you know that it's only missing the third axis. So go up.
Exactly. I don't think I've ridden a motorcycle once or twice since I retired that electric motorcycle. I do nothing but airplanes now.
So you weren't a really big motorcycle person then?
Well, in 2009, I think in 2007, I was a novice and I decided I wanted to race motorcycles. In 2009, I raced in the World Superbike Championship, and then I broke my pelvis. And then in 2010, I built the electric motorcycle. I think that's right. 2010, the electric motorcycle. And then in 2000, it took a whole year. Same motor, 260 horsepower motorcycle, if you want to think about that for a minute. It took a year to build it, and then in 2011 was sort of the racing year. Raced it on speedways, raced it up Pikes Peak, Bonneville, and all that stuff.
But don't you have to have licenses, sort of racing licenses and qualifications to do things like? You can't just say I'd like to race in Bonneville, please, or can you?
Yeah, no. Well, Bonneville's easier than World Superbike Championship. That was the hard. Getting into the World Superbike Championship was hard. I had to go through AMA, the U.S. National Championship, to get to World Superbikes. But I got a little taste of the world stage, so you could be, when I was racing as an amateur, I could be in the top 3. And when I raced in the AMA as a professional, I was about in the middle. And when I raced in World Superbikes, I was last. So welcome to the world. Yeah,
I don't know what to say. I need to throw it to the floor, take a sip of beer, and someone else asked Chip some questions. My flab is utterly aghast here. That's amazing stuff.
Questions. Don't ask me questions.
No, the first question is, how to stack so much power on something that is supposed to fly? So because batteries are not known to be light, and the power delivery has to be extremely well controlled, so that you don't get some fireworks.
Oh, you're very correct. Yeah, it's so right now the airplane, this electric airplane we're talking about. So that first flight that we're kind of joking about was in 2012, and so in 2012 I was flying this thing around. 2012, 2013. This was 5 years before anyone else was doing electric airplanes. So pretty much everything we did was some kind of failure. It was, we do the taxi test and something failed. We'd take off and something failed. I've had 4 emergency landings. Everything we touched was some kind of failure. But in the end, we squeaked out some world records and we learned something. Well, just this year, we've decided to refresh the whole airplane one more time before we retire it. And pretty much this airframe is getting tired. It's getting to the end. But we have a 53 kilowatt hour battery pack in there now. So to your point, we have a 600-pound battery pack in a 1,600-pound airplane. So of 1,600 pounds, 600 of it is battery pack. And it's the largest battery pack, I think, in any electric airplane. 53 kilowatt hours is pushing up towards a Tesla.
So basically you want to teach Airbus a lesson and flying to the channel and back like they did with that skinny little plane.
Yeah. That's right. Yeah, it's funny because it's me and a few volunteers versus Airbus, Rolls-Royce, and Siemens. So if you ever could think of a David and Goliath story, this is it.
Well, one thing on that I find amusing is that when it comes to Airbus and Boeing and all of these guys, that they do have years and years of aviation behind them. They've got all the technical knowledge whatsoever, and in a lot of these projects, this is what they got in there. Like they're running stuff that we're all doing as enthusiasts, as developers, as hobbyists, and they're actually jumping on the back of that, which sort of seems backwards, but is awesome. It's great to still have opportunities in development in today's day and age.
Well, I think that's right. I think when you look at Airbus and Boeing, Siemens, Rolls-Royce, these are great companies, international companies. And in what they're good at, people like us can't compete. But, I can't compete building a Boeing 737, right? But in the idea of scrapping around, experimenting, taking products like Pixhawk and integrating them into something, which is something we've been doing here at Yates Electrospace also. In terms of building an electric airplane in 2 months, test flying it, working out the bugs, setting world records, companies like that can't compete at all with people like us. So it's a question of knowing your strengths. You don't want to get in a money spending pissing match with Boeing, but they don't want to get into a build an airplane in your garage and go fly it the next day pissing match with me.
Well, that's exactly it, isn't it? Because they couldn't send their test pilot. Oh, here, have a go. How many hours you got? Oh, someone from the office, come up, learn to fly an airplane. And by the way, when you've done 50 hours, we're going to send you off on this experimental thing. They could never do it. I'm sorry, that's a bit rude, Joe. I'm sorry, but that's that's an analogy, isn't it? They can't play in that space. And I was gonna. So my piece to that was, Airbus and Boeing seems like a bit like Me Too, trying to catch up in a lot of ways. The Airbus cargo lift thing in Farnborough 2 years ago, whatever it was, that was the biggest competition of renderings we've seen in this industry to date. It was ridiculous. There wasn't one, and still wasn't one. I think they just about got the winner flying, but we won't see it again. It was a dreadful thing, and that I actually refused to go to the. Wouldn't refuse. I was invited to the prize giving of that, and I thought, I'm not going to bother with that. This is all rubbish.
Well, we saw that, right? And they have a, Boeing came out with an octocopter that their venture group funded, and it supposedly can lift 500 pounds, but it's. I mean, God knows how much that thing costs. I think it's a worthwhile project. Don't get me wrong. But our Silent Arrow, which is a heavy payload UAV, emergency disaster response.
I don't want to talk about that yet. We haven't finished. I don't want to talk about that yet. Bloody hell! This is.
We are still on the fun parts.
Yes, exactly. Silent, whatever.
Mind you, Chip, at least you brought up the Boeing heavy lift, which of course has a cube on it and has a here GPS blaring on top, which is lovely.
Hang on a minute. Is it too early in the morning? I don't think we're supposed to know that, are we? Do you have anything to do with that? Do you know that Boeing's got this here gear on it?
I think on that one we do, because it's pretty obvious in the middle of their footage.
Well, you
can't hide it.
That sounds outrageous that you've outed them like that. I hope the designer of the autopilot doesn't hear about this. That's terrible.
It'll go to his head.
It would go over his head, wouldn't it? And other big companies are also using open source autopilots and projects to get themselves to places that they would take them years. It would take them years to get there. But I think what's interesting is the people's ideas of how to get the job done seem a little bit dated in some ways. Let's just put loads of propellers on it and make it lift vertically. Well, let's just make those propellers a little bit bigger and make it a helicopter, as far as I'm concerned, because it'll be just as efficient and faster. If you want the VTOL, VTOL really, 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 really is what you need.
When are we getting our first electric helicopter, Chip?
Well, the guy, I think Sikorsky. remember Sikorsky flew one 5 years ago, and I don't think it could even get off the ground. And then they came back and developed into it.
How many horsepower did you say that motor is?
So I've got a couple. I've got a megawatt. I've got four 250 kilowatt motors that makes a megawatt, and then we've got a couple 180 horsepower motors. And my electric airplane that I'm flying now, the Long Easy, has a 258 horsepower motor in it.
It's 258 horsepower is enough for like a Robertson 22-ish size aircraft.
Yeah,
almost. It's a little bit low powered. They're 360, aren't they? I think, if I remember rightly.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. So
out of rotation. If you go out of rotate, you don't need all that power. You just go idling.
Just wait for the wind.
Yeah.
Chris says, I think you need one. God, Chris is on top of it. iForce2D says, I think you need 1.21 gigawatts of power. That's flipping accurate, Chris. How do you know that? 1.2, not 1.22, not 1.2, but 1.21. That's
you went to an online calculator.
I wouldn't even know how to start to calculate that. He's a clever chap. He is a clever chap. But I think actually Chris, iForce2D, has an excellent aircraft for delivery, and that's the flying wardrobe that he's made. And that type of STOL, which this week we've discovered, E-STOL, electric STOL, is a flipping new acronym. Welcome to February 2019, where we'll roll that one out. And people are reckoning that short takeoff and landing aircraft might be an answer. And of course they might be an answer, because why drag? Oh, I don't know. Will I get into trouble for dissing short separate lift thrust and all those other things? The latest trend. Will I be in trouble for that, do you think?
Come on, it's the same war as motorcycles versus cars, and then you get the sidecars on a motorcycle, which joins the downs of cars and motorcycles. So that's the VTOL.
Yeah, that's true. I don't know. There's an aviation adage, isn't it? If it looks right, it probably is right. And a lot of the separate lift stuff things I see just don't look right. so that's why I don't like them. But
that's why the Harrier was so ugly, but it proved well.
And now, steady, easy now, easy. Don't you diss the Harrier. We know you should.
I'm not dissing the Harrier. It was a great idea, the Harrier.
It still is a great idea.
And it's a shame that it has been discontinued by the powers that be.
They don't do it under current maintenance and ready to go.
They didn't evolve it from there.
Oh, is Ian? Ian's joined. Ian's put the heater on in the shed. He's got his coat on. You've still not got a heater for the shed, then, Ian?
No, the heating is on. It'll be warm any minute now.
Oh, very good, very good. How's it, mate? How you doing?
Oh, fine. I'm just having lots of people arguing with me on Facebook for no reason today, so I'm feeling very depressed.
No, I think there's generally there's generally lots of reasons to argue with you, Ian. I can't see whether
you understand it is actually a policy that we have to argue with Ian.
Yeah, I do believe I got that memo as well several years ago.
You did.
Yeah, absolutely.
We sent it around.
Yeah, absolutely. But let's just kick back to the Harrier. Your Harriers, I think, have you got 3 now, Philip? Or
they're not actually mine. They belong to
the people's Harriers.
Yeah, Australian VTOL Technology. They've got a few toys now.
But what authority will they operate under if you ever get? Are you aiming to get? You aiming to get them right? Experimental.
Yeah.
This blows my mind. A jet that was serviceable when I was in the Royal Air Force is now operating under the experimental category. That's nuts. That's absolutely nuts.
So we got the T4, which we showed at the air show 2 years ago, Ballarat Air Show. Oh, sorry, Ballarat Air Show.
Ballarat,
We actually ran the engine at Ballarat. That was fun. Yeah, we unfortunately have all been a little bit too busy. We had grand plans of what it was going to do at this air show, but this air show is in a couple of weeks, and it looks exactly the same as it did at the last air show. So unfortunately, we didn't really get a chance to work too much on it, but we would really love to get one flying. We've got a pilot involved in the restoration process now that's fully certified to fly it, who intends on flying it. So that's pretty cool.
Wow, it's very cool. It's very cool. All right, let's go back to Chip. Let's give Chip a chance. See, what was this silent arrow thing you mentioned there, Chip?
I was trying to give a pitch to Philip over there with Profi CNC. So yeah,
thank you.
I was kicking Boeing and propping you up at the same time in one fell swoop.
That's awesome. Can't drop that out.
But silent arrow, the clue is in the word silent. Let me put the website in our links.
Put it up there.
Silent arrow, yeah.
Well, you know, it's funny. I think someone told me if you Google silent arrow, you get like an underwear and panties and bra company, and that's not us. We're not putting autopilots in. We're not putting autopilots in bra technology yet. I know Philip would want us to, but
yeah, my wife is watching this. Yeah.
So
well, immediately you got to wonder where more money is, haven't you? Really, at the end of the day.
I know.
There'd definitely be more money there.
Yes.
So this, yeah, forget about saving lives, you know. So this is so Silent Arrow is a disaster relief drone. It's an autonomous cargo delivery drone powered by Philips autopilot. So it's got a cube in it, 2.1. And it's got a little LiDAR, and of course it's got a couple GPS, a couple airspeed sensors. But it's a 2,000-pound autonomous drone that is a glider at this point. It's going to be electric, but right now it's a glider, and so it carries 1,600 pounds of payload to disaster relief. You know, wildfire. I mean, anything you can think of, Africa. So we've just signed a deal to sell 2,500 of them a year. We're selling 40 this year. It's our first year, and yeah, it's a fully autonomous 2,000-pound airplane. It's got 4 wings that spring out. They spring open. You drop it out of another airplane, so it's a glider. You know, if you're military, it's a C-130 or something like that. If you're civilian, it could be a helicopter or a Cessna Caravan or something like that. It's just an 8-foot-long box that has 4 wings that spring open and give you a 28-foot wingspan. And yeah, it glides at 8-to-1 glide ratio and does an autonomous landing. So and brings you all the stuff you need.
So that's Regalo's sort of hang glider glide ratio from back in the day, isn't it? Really, it's early hang gliders, 8-to-1. So you say it doesn't. So well, all right. Well, how's this work then? So because I own a Hercules, and there I am flying along, and I tip it out of the back. How do we designate the landing area? What sort of landing area does it, or does it matter? Is it just going to crash and then that's not crash? That's not the term I meant. But is it going to arrive in whatever? Well, because if you need stuff, don't you? And it doesn't really matter. The aircraft doesn't actually matter. Is it maybe I missed that? Is it reusable, or are we going to just chuck it in there and get the stuff to where it needs to be?
Yeah, this first one is not reusable. Sorry, it's disposable. It's we're selling them for about $13,000 US now, fully autonomous with the autopilot and everything. And we have the idea to get it down to in the $6,000 range for a 2,000-pound airplane. It's really built out of laser cut parts and extrusions and literally plywood and foam. And we have a CNC foam cutter. We have a laser machine that cuts parts out of aluminum. So it's designed to be incredibly cheap, but still glide at 8-to-1, autonomously land. So yeah, someone on the ground has to say, here's the football pitch that we want you to land on, right? And get rid of the football players, and designate just using Mission Planner is what we use. Mission Planner. So just using Mission Planner, we set up a 3D route. Saying where we're going to drop it, what are the winds aloft, what are the winds on the ground, what terrain is there that we need to avoid for the landing, and yeah, it's got the LiDAR light, which now is Garmin LiDAR, and 2 GPSs, 2 airspeed sensors, and so yeah, someone on the ground has to say this is safe, but yeah, it's meant to be filled up. It's an 8-foot long. It looks like a coffin. I hope that's not a sign of things to come. But yeah, you fill it up with 1,600 pounds of stuff and tell the Pixhawk 2.1 where you want it to land.
You're good with your marketing, aren't you? Very good. You can come again, as it were. So, all right. So, okay, that's great. So I can imagine that a Hercules is certified to chuck stuff out the back and all sorts of other aircraft. But you mentioned helicopters and other things. I mean, what certification process is there for making sure when you push it out the side of a caravan, let's say, it's not going to go straight through the tailplane?
No, that's a great question. Yeah, for the C-130, we comply with all the requirements for NavAir, which is this, they call it a CDS bundle. You push it out backwards and it's on a static line. So the static line, there's one line connected to each of the 4 wings. And as it goes out the back at about 50 feet, the static line pulls 4 pins out of the wings and the wings spring open. There's 2 wings on the front that spring open, and then there's 2 wings on the back that spring open. So if you look at the website, it's a coffin with 4 wings, you know, and the total wing area is 28 feet. So for a caravan, yeah, we've reached out to the guys at Cessna and Kodiak and to try to put together a program where we'd get an STC. There would be a set of rollers. So what we did, though, knowing that we don't have that ability, we're autopilot guys, we're airplane guys. We just signed up a company called US Cargo, and their whole life is throwing things out of C-130s. And so their job in our partnership is to get all the STCs and to make the delivery apparatus that shoots silent arrow out the back of the airplane.
Wow, how very cool! I thought we were going to be talking about electric record breaking. Well, you're on you're either end of the spectrum there, aren't you? Going fast with electric and then no motor. You're either end of the thing there. That's.
Oh yeah, we love drones and. You know, so the Yates Electrospace and the silent arrow and stuff, that's the business. The electric world records, you know, we get sponsors in, but it does, you know, I haven't made any money setting world records, put it that way. So you can think of it as business and pleasure.
I don't want to butt in on you too much there, but I am. But isn't that putting you at the forefront of you know, high capacity speed controllers, wiring that all up, and all the things that these eVTOLs and urban air vehicles need, all those clever bits they need, aren't you kind of by default then at the cutting edge of that?
Well, I want to be careful. I mean, every time I meet somebody, I find out how much I don't know. But from 2009, we started working with a company called UQM in Colorado. And they provided us a motor and a controller that we, you know, took apart and blew up and refined. And so what we end up doing now is we take their products and we slave them to our controller. And so we write all our own software into a controller that then talks to the slaved motor controller over CAN. So yeah, it's CAN. I don't know. It's not sex. Better than I2C, but you know, not as good as some. I don't know. But so we do. Yeah.
On the right track.
Yeah. we use CAN. We try to steal stuff from the auto industry. What's proven, you know. So don't invent things that have already been invented. But I think in terms of the airframe and the software we write for control, I think we're out there, you know, doing good stuff. But there's a lot of companies now in this space who are pretty impressive.
You made a fundamental one of the things I didn't warn you about before you come on here is we don't agree with we don't allow common sense here and not inventing things that have already been invented. That strikes me as common sense, and you're not going to go very far in the drone industry if you invoke common sense. I'm afraid you need more rendering.
Well, I did invent the flying coffin. Let's be clear. I do have a 2,000-pound drone being controlled by a Pixhawk 2.1. So
yeah,
you're the first.
Cube.
Yeah.
So how many test flights have you had then of this machine, of the Silent Arrow?
So we did 2 in October, and we're going back at the end of February. I'm just looking at my dates here. February 27th through March 6th, we're back in flight testing. We just got an FAA approval, a COA. Oh, you know what COAs are. We got an FAA approval to fly Silent Arrow, dropping it from a helicopter 5,000 feet over the ground and below in a massive portion of Oregon. And so we were waiting for that between October and now. We've got that, and so now we've just scheduled the next drop. We're going to use a Huey we're going to use a big Huey helicopter to lift the aircraft.
And that's as a suspended load.
Exactly. I don't know that using a Huey in the real life use of Silent Arrow is the right idea. It could lift it up to 10,000 feet, and then you could glide at 8-to-1. So, but people would see you and hear you. And if you were doing aid for Africa, that would be fine. Maybe there's Ebola and you don't want to land, you don't want villagers to approach the aircraft. Then a Huey would be fine, or a Caravan or something. But if you're doing something where you really don't want to be seen, or you're doing some disaster relief in a foreign country that you don't want to have a footprint in, you would do something like a Hercules, the C-130, and you would have a 50-mile standoff. So 50 miles gliding at 8-to-1 would get you 50 miles from 25,000 feet. I think that's how you would use it if you were trying not to be seen. So
are you just jumping? Please, other people jump in and stop me talking. But are you just using do land start somewhere? A mission planner. How exactly are you making these landings happen? Don't answer that if you've got some secret source there.
No, well, I think that's the good thing about Silent Arrow is that it has this potential in military and civilian disaster relief, and it's really an interesting way. The wings open and everything, but it's all open source. We haven't done anything proprietary because, frankly, we don't want anything proprietary flying into foreign countries. So it's not export. It's not ITAR controlled. There's no secret sauce in there. It's designed to be disposable. So we use Mission Planner off the shelf. We use the Pixar Cube off the shelf, Profi CNC. We use the Garmin LiDAR. We just use the Here GPS. It's all stuff that anyone could get. We're trying not to put proprietary things into Silent Arrow.
That's really
Chris, iForce 2D is just asking. He's looking at your pictures. Is presumably each entire wing is actuated to enable control because he's not seeing ailerons, or is that just your renderings?
No, yeah. So the wings pivot open and lock in place, and then each wing does have an aileron. Each wing has an aileron. That's one thing that we do ourselves. We make the servos. We started with Gearworks servos, but they were too slow, so we made our own servos with our own gearboxes, and we use our Palalu boards. So we write our own servo response codes. Our PID is all ours, obviously, to match. But yeah, so we have big, powerful servos that we run off a separate power rail, and just use the Pixhawk to for the servo.
And FX Node's asking, is there SLAM with the LiDAR? I guess not. It's just pointing. We use LiDARs as well for landings.
Yeah.
I guess it's just pointing down.
It's pointing down. Yeah. Sorry,
Philip, go ahead.
I just said it's just ground truth.
Yeah.
You don't need to know that.
Yeah. It is. If you haven't used the LiDAR yet, if you use LiDARs, it's just amazing. it's just amazing. You've got to learn to trust them, learn to love them. Once you love your LiDAR, you won't go back. You won't go back. It's.
We're hoping it works. I know the Garmin LiDAR. We're hoping it works because it's the right price, $100, and it's going to get crashed. But if it's not good enough, we have to use it.
Have a talk to. Oh, brain fade, South Africa.
Lightweight.
Yeah.
Have a chat to Lightweight. I know their gear is more expensive, but there is a significant benefit over the Garmin stuff. It is far better quality than the Garmin. So I swear
heard that, but yeah, it's $200, $300, and we're at $100.
Yeah, so look, this is where you say that your record making doesn't make you any money. This is where it can, because go talk to them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Just don't count the hours that you'll lose trying to figure out some quirkiness on the Garmin.
Yeah.
Just been there, done that.
Yeah. Me and Lewis are trying to be very subtle here. There's things we both want to say.
Speak your mind.
And we're agreeing with each other, so that's also telling us.
Yeah, we heard that. We heard that too.
If we can get Ian to agree, then we're A for away. All we need to do is get Ian to, and that's the holy trinity of agreement. It's just. Yeah.
I want to ask Philip about. Oh yeah, there you go. Yeah.
Guess why is it here and not on an helicopter or a drone?
It looks like a set of bollocks.
Hey.
Why are you dangling it like that? Stop dangling that.
Because it's just outside of Spain, and they have the whole Matador thing, and that's kind of the whole thing there. And Portugal, it's the whole thing.
I've got a question for you on the relief side of things. Have you had much to do with Mark Jacobson and the Syria Airlift program?
No, we're talking to like the Village. Who are we talking to? World Food Program. I got some notes here. The Global Fund, Village Reach. USAID, people like that, but we really need to hire a business development person to handle the international disaster relief. We've been focused on the military because that's where our first customers were, but the civilian disaster relief I think it's twice as large of a market as the military cargo resupply, if you can believe that. So we've been that, and it's a huge market.
That decision is really war, no war. I mean, in times of war, then it's just
no, exactly. I mean, listen, nobody wants war, right? And so our thing is life saving. So if you're a soldier and you're out of ammo and you need supplies, it's going to save your life. Taking the politics of the war out. Of course, Silent Arrow is not armed. It's no kind of weaponized platform at all. It's a wooden box.
Yeah. Sorry, mate. Jeff Parsley's just joining us in the comments. It says, "Tell Chip." Jeff says hi and hates Garmin too. So there we are. There is our third.
Be nice to Garmin. Oh, be nice to Garmin.
Let's just look at his shirt. Has he got Garmin written on his shirt?
I don't think Garmin.
I have a regular airplane that we fly to the desert to work on the electric airplane. It's a Piper Cherokee 235. I cannot afford any Garmin stuff to go in there. You'll be happy to know my airplane is all round steam gauges. Some of them have fog in them, and some of them work. And there's no Garmin.
In that case, put Mission Planner in your plane on a little tablet, and away you go. You get yourself a nice Ethos. Look, the Garmin avionics, I swear by, it's great stuff. So it's not an insult to Garmin at all. Garmin bought that LiDAR is an existing thing and got into that. And there's many people that are swearing by it now. We've obviously seen its history and seen everything, and there's still a few little quirks that they refuse to fix, which just gives us a sour taste. And if you're going to put 8,000 pounds of cargo and you want to get it on the ground without it being smushed all over the ground, then I'd rather deal with a company that has dealt with the open source community in a positive way and has encouraged sharing of technology. Garmin are a litigating company. They have been trying to sue a particular ADSB company and a few other things like that. So I don't like their ways under that side of things. It's one thing to not like your competition. Trust me, Lewis will know I don't like my competition. And it's okay not to like your competition, but it's a very different thing to actually prohibit your competition from existing in any way, shape, or form. And that's something we don't like. I'll quite happily name Qualcomm as another lecherous company that I want nothing to do with for that same reason.
I've got a bit of paper. Shall we make a list? Let's make a list. Shall we make a list? Right.
But, when companies start suing companies for doing good for aviation, they tend to end up on my blacklist pretty quick.
Well, thank you. You just increased our cost of goods $300. Thank you, Philip.
No. You'll get those $300 difference back in 2 days.
Okay.
Because the Garmins are great if you love tinkering and debugging. They are wonderful for debugging. because you get a different malfunction every day. So they're great.
Well, now I want my $100 back.
But
Yeah.
but I'm thinking about this though. So it's a glider, so we're not worrying about power. So we're only that lidar's only there for the flare, really. You've got
Just the flare. It only
you've got the dual GPS, but as long as you get the attitude right, you're going to be pretty close anyway. It's a glider. Or do you do some sort of deep stall flare to thud you into the place?
It is a deep. It's a deep stall. It's a deep stall. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's why you need it then, for a deep stall to get your landing area reduced. What would that landing area be? What size run do we need?
Well, yeah, we threw it off of a Camaro. We bought a Chevy Camaro, and we go up and down our runway at 150 miles an hour, and so we've thrown it off at stall speed. And if it hits if it lands on a cement surface like that, it could slide 300 feet, and we think that's a little too far. So we're adding these like chevrons underneath, so that when it lands in the dirt, and we advise that you land in the dirt, that it kind of digs in and just slides to a stop. Yeah, so that's something we're doing.
You're not worrying about it going nose up and in.
No, we haven't seen that, because again, the Pixar it's been landing square. It hasn't been landing like this to dig in a wingtip or something.
No. I mean, if you've got the chevrons on the bottom, you're not going to dig the bottom surface in and then have it go nose over end over end.
We haven't tried it. I don't know. This is just one thing that we're talking about doing during these upcoming drop tests, is trying some of these to get it stopped faster.
Do you know what I think in Africa that's what trees are for? Just put it through a tree. That'll stop it.
We got trees in Africa.
Yeah, we got trees. That'll stop it. That's what I've used. I haven't got it here, but there's a Bixler I use, and that's been used in sort of anti or animal tracking stuff, and that's very scratched because I've used trees to stop it. That's how I stop it. It didn't go anywhere. It then cut the tree down. It's quite easy. It's very, very, very short takeoff, very short landing. The time is getting on, but let's stay with this. But we've got to talk to other people here, and more nonsense. I have a feeling we're going to go long here tonight. Nicola, I wanted to talk to you about trying to fly fast with that zog, however you say it. How do you say that thing, Nicola? That thing you've been flying quick.
Zog.
Zocht. All right, so you've managed to fly it quickly, and apparently, according to many reviewers, that's impossible.
Depends on what you do quickly. So the problem with that plane is flying it slow, not quick. It can do quick. 100 kilometers an hour easy, but I guess some people don't consider that quick enough.
And then how long could you manage to fly it for 100 kilometers an hour? Not very long, I shouldn't think.
Well, that really depends on the component chosen with the stock setup. Not sure if I would keep it full throttle for an extended period of time, but if you're really hell-bent on that, you can always replace the motor first with something beefier, and of course the ESC, and then you can just pretty much blow a battery pack after battery pack. As a problem flying quickly, I think the majority of people to be agile. Then okay, maybe not the biggest thing you can buy. But why would you want to go? I don't understand that. Why would you want to go quick? 100 kilometers. It's usually finding it hard autonomously, for instance, at lowest 70 kilometers. Oh, that's.
Oh, you're breaking up. You're super breaking up for me now, Nicola. I don't know about the others. Sorry, mate. But yes, I don't see why you want to go flat out flying an FPV thing.
Yeah, my internet is crapping.
And but what I must say, whilst you've got crappy internet, is that it's your fault that I've got a beer tonight because you started it and then Chip jumped in. It's your fault. It's your fault.
Yeah.
All right.
But as I if the audio is better. I had my friend fly it almost stalled, so I can actually have a chance to catch up with it, to it with the Phantom 3 Pro. He had full and lowest just.
Mate, Nicola, it's too broken. It's too broken, mate. I'm sorry.
The problem is that he caught it with the Phantom 3 Pro.
Well, so, yes.
At that moment, the connection went crazy.
You muted him, didn't you? As soon as he said Phantom.
Yeah, it's funny enough. People from but that's well done, people. That's a very nice link because I know someone that uses Phantoms a lot, and that person that uses Phantoms a lot is Dr. Greg. Dr. Greg, and
that's not true. My whole new course is built. It's built around the Solo. The whole new course.
The whole new course is built around. That's for Ian. You built the course around the Solo for Ian. That's amazing. That is amazing.
I got 3 of them lying around here. If you need one.
Did you manage to get? Did you get in on the cheap run of them when they all sort of?
I think Greg might have had a bit of an inside deal, like I did.
Insider trading. But Greg,
let me tell you how. Yeah, so I'll share a little bit in the chat too of the new course.
Cool. Now, unfortunately, your work isn't that I've got to prove this. Your work is never. We've had a fantastic chat with Chip, and we can be light-hearted and we can have fun and muck about with it. But unfortunately, it's not actually your work. Your work is you are Dr. Plant, Dr. growing stuff and analyzing that. But you've really shot to fame with your search and rescue work, which isn't funny and it isn't a laugh. So the course, the Rapid Response Online Masterclass, what is that going to be about?
Yeah, so it's called Rapid Response Drone Data, and it's I call it R2D2 by short, just to kind of get some nerdiness into. But it's really about drone data, and so it's basically I've done 3 wildfires here in California now as kind of the data analyst for public safety teams. So there's a lot of pilots, and still even after 3 fires, there's kind of one of me on the data analyst side. And so basically, I would like to retire from disasters. So I'm trying to just do a brain dump basically within this course of, hey, here is everything I've learned in terms of how you take off-the-shelf platforms and really map areas really quickly. So it's not really search and rescue. It's not about live feed. It's not about how to fly a drone. It's not about how to build a drone program. It's really how do you map and visualize areas very quickly in 2D or with panoramas or with video, like very easy tools using very off-the-shelf platforms of just your Phantom or your Mavic, like tools all these guys have. And basically the workflow, how do you prepare? How do you capture using off-the-shelf apps? How do you process it really quickly? And then how do you deliver that to the public? So I poured all of that into a course. It's about 100 lectures. It's about 10 hours, all the cheat sheets, everything. I've worked probably for about 6 months or so just to kind of build this course out over the past couple of fires. But I also included a very raw component of the course, which is just like my live vlogs from the field. So part of this course is also to show, like, look, I'm just shooting from the hip here, and I don't pretend that I'm not. But somebody has to teach the data side of it, and if it has to be a plant biologist, like, so be it. So I feel like this is some of my due diligence of, like, look, I don't know who else is going to teach this stuff. I don't see the data side being trained on. I see a lot of flight and a lot of safety and a lot of interest in the next greatest hardware. So that's why I built the course. So it's $400. I've tried to make it affordable, but super in-depth. And it goes through kind of 3 fires worth of data layers and how you can do it yourself.
Oh, wow.
That's awesome, Greg. And I mean, I've known Greg for many, many years. I had the privilege of working with him for a short time at 3D Robotics. Greg's one of those few people you meet that has no interest in actually becoming rich out of anything and just wants to do good. And
don't tell my wife that.
I've just been thoroughly impressed with Greg. Every chance I've had to work with him has been awesome. And yeah, Great to be on here with you today.
Well, thanks, Phil. Yeah, I mean, I think like I'm nervous to enter I don't want to be the disaster drone guy because like I'm like, look at the folks that I see in the public safety world and the disaster world. It's like, look, I don't wear all black military gear. I don't drive, you know, a pimped out SWAT van. I drive a Subaru with a car seat in the back. But at the same time, like I can hang out with folks in the field under really stressful conditions and like make fun of ourselves also helps. But how to pool all the data together and organize it, you know, how to think scientifically, how to run experiments, how to think creatively. Like those are the skill sets that folks need. And it's a huge problem. Like every public safety team needs to have a basic level of geography and mapping and that skill set about data. And we're not teaching that. And you have to teach that at scale. If you're building a drone program and all you think about is the drones, you're putting the cart before the horse. You got to think about infrastructure, labeling files, all that boring stuff that nobody wants to think about. They just want to land the drone and be like, all right, mission accomplished. Instead, like the work just began. And everybody goes home and then it's me holding the hard drives. And it's like, it can't be that anymore. This stuff stresses me out. And California is going to keep burning down. So, you know, I think it's going to take 10 fires before we have the infrastructure to really support the data side.
But couldn't you, I think you could probably roll that sort of comment out to the entire industry at the moment. It's, you know, you're not an instant surveyor because you've got a Phantom or a Solo or whatever, or you know, we are still finding the way as an industry almost. Perhaps not so much in Australia. They're well ahead of us, started in 2000. They know what works and what doesn't work. And the eVTOLs and Chip and his large electric motors and stuff, everyone's still feeling their way around. And there's an awful lot of bull dust around and very few people are actually doing it. And you are doing it, Greg. So fair play to you. I'm just going to mention a comment. Smooth Bar says, Nicola talked me into ordering one of those Phoenix 2,400 gliders, 2,400 gliders. So they are. It's got an order. I'm sure we've got an affiliate link for that. Yeah.
Sure you do.
Yeah, I'm sure you did. I'm sure you did.
Is the audio working better now? I moved back to my phone.
It's working better now, Nicola. It's working better. So, Greg, if you don't want to be the search and rescue guy, do you still see a future in the plant stuff?
Yeah, so I would much rather be out at vineyards and tasting rooms than in a disaster zone.
Well, yeah, okay.
So I'm testing currently the MicaSense Ultim. So that's the new sensor. It runs around $10,000. It's a higher resolution 5-band multispectral with a lower resolution thermal. So you get 6 layers kind of all aligned. I'm super excited about that. I'm flying that on an M200 right now. I actually recently just tested Parrot Fields, their new app, and it does a live stitching of multispectral data on an iPad. And actually, it's pretty good. That's with the Bluegrass drone, which is their platform. But I feel like actually real-time stitching of multispectral.
So like, it really is actually live. It really is
live, and it takes a little bit of processing, but then you get like a really nice looking map. So if you're just going out to map your field every single day, it's like I'll just take my tablet out and map it and have the analytics on site.
But at the end of the day, a poor example, let's take this Lego box or whatever, but I would just end up with a picture. For me, that would you just end up with a colourful picture with different colours on it. It would be meaningless. I could not interpret that data. At what point do people have enough skill to interpret that data, and how could they get that skill? Hint.
Yeah, so I mean, I have a whole nother masterclass on how to teach that I'm not as nervous about teaching and putting out there, which is on my website, Scholar Farms. So again, $400, 10 hours of training, and it covers the different sensors. I'm trying to build in more sensors. Basically, I'm trying to talk to all the agricultural sensor companies and software companies out there and just be able to pool it all together and be like one trusted source in the industry for plant mapping and how to train it and how to build it and scale it. And then occasionally do a disaster zone. Just occasionally.
Does all that imagery, is that there are ground-based sensors, aren't there, and stuff like that? Is there a standard for how that imagery is presented? So
no, and like people like the agricultural companies like Climate Field View, which was owned by Monsanto and now Bayer, they're trying to pull together this, like all the satellite data with the ground sensor data with drone data and put all those pieces together. But looking at all those correlations and relationships through time, it's a big challenge. And so that's kind of what actually pays my bills, is companies that want to dial that in. Like I come and actually wear my science hat and work alongside their R&D teams to say, okay, let's pick the hardware, software and analytics, and let's actually apply this to this crop or these test plots, et cetera. So that's what I try and do on a daily basis.
And how sorry, go ahead.
No, because all this comes to one point, is he knows what he wants to see and how to see it, and he has a good process to see it. So instead of throwing money and throwing tech to a problem, he throws brains, and that's the whole point. You cannot do anything on industrial / commercial side of the drones industry if you don't know where to go.
Yes. Well, yeah. I mean, it's the analogy I use a lot with people is, just because you can make a map with some web-based services or an image, a stitched image with web-based services, doesn't make you a surveyor. There's a whole lot of other skills that are actually required to interpret that data, and that's the not quite missing. It's less as time goes by. It's less and less missing in this industry, but it is kind of the missing secret sauce. I'm trying to work out how to get Ian in here to argue. He's not arguing at all. We've not talked about anamorphic lenses. I can't see. I've had to have a beer now. I can't say anamorphic lenses. We'll have to talk about them in a minute.
Anamorphic lens and blade shutters.
Yeah, whatever, and gels, whatever else he does. It seems that all he does is spend his money on lenses. That's as far as I can tell, and argues with people online. That's all he does. Just argues. He's a troll, and with cameras, a troll with cameras. That's it. That's all I can tell. Let's roll back to Chip. So your records will end soon because perhaps the aeroplane is at its limits, and you're not going to go to a twin-engined aeroplane to go faster or anything like that?
Well, yeah. So the Long Easy with the motor in it now has just been refurbished with the brand new battery pack. So we're going to make another attempt at 6 world records. So we set them all in the first place, and we've slowly lost them all. And that's a sign of progress. That's good. That's a good thing, having your records broken. That's all good. So we're going to take another crack at getting them back and then retire that airplane. And then what happens next right now is a little bit confidential.
Okay, fair enough.
As long as no Teslas are armed in that process.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you intend to arm any Teslas?
Yeah, not in the immediate future.
Sorry, I just walked in and you're asking, do you intend to arm any Teslas?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, that's what he said. Yeah, Chris is. I've got 2 arms and I drive them. Chris is saying, what type of cells does the plane use?
Yeah, the ones that are in there now, the pack we have now, the cells are made by a company called Ferrosys, and the pack is assembled by a company called Romeo Power in Los Angeles. Romeo is a new company. The last 2 years, they're a lot of like. I think SpaceX guys and smart people came together to form Romeo Power. So we work with them. They build the pack, and then we do the integration. We do the BMS. We do the charging systems ourselves.
And I've been trying to portray you as the reckless fool that learned to fly and did the motorcycles and all that sort of thing. But the reality is, you were a Boeing engineer, weren't you?
Yeah, I was actually a business guy at Boeing. And then I was at Honeywell. I was at Boeing and Honeywell together for a total of about 15 years. But I was a toy engineer before that. So, for what it's worth. So which one
would you rather put on your CV then? Which one would go at the top? It's toy engineer, isn't it?
Oh, no. I mean, if you need a resume, you're doing the wrong thing,
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, what's the record on the What's the record? Is there a speed record for the electric semi?
What's that? What do you mean electric semi? Are you talking about
like
semi?
the Tesla electric semi? Is there a ground speed record for like an electric semi?
I don't know. Actually, that's a great question. I mean, ground speed, I think Ohio State always has it. I want to say the Buckeye Bullet is the fastest electric vehicle on the ground. I would love to beat that in the air and be the fastest electric vehicle of any kind. Why a Bullet should be faster than an airplane, I have no idea. So
you must be.
I don't know anything about the semis.
Yeah. I mean, it just seems like I've just seen Tesla's, you know, their advertisements, and it looks like it's pretty fast. So,
well, I mean, here the thing with speed is any electric power plant can be fast, right? So in my electric airplane, if I go slow, I can fly for an hour and 20 minutes in my Long Easy right now. If I go fast, it lasts about 12 minutes.
So hang on, I'm jumping in on Greg probably there. So at what speed are you flying for an hour and 20 minutes?
Yeah, just like 100 miles an hour. That's the slowest I can fly and maintain altitude. So when I do an endurance flight, I get it to maybe 5,000 feet, pull the throttle back and set, and I'm looking at I have my current and my voltage. And so I look at current. So I wind the throttle back until I'm not losing altitude. I'm just mushing along. And that's about 100 miles an hour. And that's pulling about just under 100 amps.
Now you say wind it back. Now explain the throttle. Have you got a throttle like this, or have you got a twiddly knob like this? Or...
No, it's a twiddly knob, like, you know, it's like milking a cat. Yeah, you just gotta. you got two little knobs that you twiddle.
Technology fans learn how to milk cats. So.
Yeah.
Okay, so, but why? All right. Why did you do that rather than going for some sort of lever, like pretending like you're in a jet or something like that?
Well, I mean, pretending you're in a jet when you're in a homemade electric airplane, you know, it's two different things. It's just a 0 to 5 volt potentiometer is all it is. So I have two knobs on my left hand. One is the throttle, 0 to 5, and it's a quarter turn. So in a quarter turn, you're 0 thrust, and a quarter turn later, you're 260 horsepower. So and I've got a kinetic energy recovery knob. So when I roll, if I'm descending,
so do I, and the ladies love it. But anyway, moving on swiftly.
Kinetic energy. You've got buildup of kinetic energy, do you?
Well, yeah. So all right. So how does that work? No, please. I'm sorry. I butted in. Explain that. How does that work?
So yeah, two knobs, right?
Yeah.
And one is kinetic energy recovery. So it's like regenerative braking, but with the propeller. Yeah. So the last time I was up at 15,000 feet, I'm pointing down, go back to the airport time. And so, I close the throttle and I'm gliding, and then I can open the second potentiometer is the 0 to 5 for KERS. It sends a negative torque command. It sends a regen torque command to the motor. And so it actually, we're able to use the windmilling prop to do a little recharge.
For the human factor sort of side of it, I'm a little bit lost as to why you use why you haven't got levers and why you've got little knobs. Surely,
I'm still worried about that.
Yeah, I am worried about that because it's a fiddly little thing, and when you're flying, you don't want a fiddly little thing, do you? You want on and off. Like the U2 is on and off with the throttle, basically.
I've gotten used to it. It's so okay. If we're getting into the brass tacks of it. It's from the electric motorcycle. We found that these 0 to 5 volt sensors, who are they made by? They're made by someone like Bosch or Denso. Someone like that was making these fly-by-wire throttle position sensors for motorcycles. And we use those for the electric motorcycle. And so when it came to the electric airplane, we just took those same sensors that we knew wouldn't fail because we had a whole year of riding the motorcycle. And we put them in a box, and I just screwed a knob on the top. So our 0 to 5 volt pots are like Denso. They're Denso Yamaha throttle position sensors. That's all they are.
Wow. I
still want a normal traditional throttle.
So would I. Yeah.
Yeah. When the ground stuff hits the rotating stuff, I want to be able to just push it forward. And
Philip doesn't want to milk it. Yeah.
No, I'm not milking it while I'm thinking. I just want to firewall the throttle.
Yeah, exactly. That's my thinking as well. If I'm thinking, hang on a minute, I'm going to turn this one like this one like this. Hang on, the sun's over this like this. So
you guys are thinking like gasoline engine guys, you know. You're still saying throttle. You're still saying firewall. You know, look, I mean, when you fly, you know, I've got a Tyrannus RC, right? So I'm flying my Tyrannus, and I mean, I've got little cat knobs on there as well.
Yes. Well, yes. Yeah, but real men fly like that, not like that. But anyway, moving on.
It's a subtle difference.
It's a subtle difference.
Like this, you mean?
Yeah. Go Philip.
Good plug there.
Yeah, you like the product placement.
Product placement. Tui, I was wondering if there's a UK university. Hang on. First of all, I hate but the drone data course of Greg sounds great. Is it a UK equivalent? Well, not really, because thankfully the UK hasn't had the fires that America. That's a horrible thing to say, but hasn't had the fires that Greg's had to go to. So, bottom line is, Greg's the man. He's got the course. UK covers university drone operators. There are university competitions and things in the UK where there's a lot of collaboration going on, and that is outside of AR PAS. So if you want to get in on that scene, I'm thinking particularly of the heavy lift competition, and there's a couple of others. So Cranfield University in the UK is the place to find a lot of that. They're very forward thinking, and they're the people that are going to make an electric twin otter. But that's another story. FX node and touchscreen can take a walk. Well, there we are. That's one for you there, Philip. Anyway, I've butted in. I've butted in with going with the comments. But obviously so. Well, it's a good job you were flying it then, and you didn't put one of the Rutans in. That would have been terrible, because they would have been going, "What the hell is this about? I don't own a cat."
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So
it's all days.
but to roll it back where my head was going originally, the speed and duration you had, that knocks most of these eVTOLs into a cocked hat. The air taxis. That's beyond their wildest dreams.
Well, you can't compare. I mean, the air taxi has no wing. You know, an air taxi can't glide, right? It's just, you know, pilot with propellers, and the guy with the most propellers gets the venture capital money. I mean, I think that's what it's happening. An airplane, you can't compare. I mean, the Long Easy glides at 14-1. I mean, just think about this for a minute. So I've got a Long Easy that's made out of fiberglass and foam. It glides at 14-1. It was invented by a genius, built by an engineer. We took it, put the very best motor money could buy. We put $50,000 of batteries in it, the very best controller. I weigh about 170 pounds. I get in it, and the best we can do with this wing and this technology is an hour and 20 minutes. That's with a big wing. That's not vertical takeoff anything. So if I floor it, we're pulling 600 amps out of a 450 volt battery pack. So you're talking real numbers.
Yeah. And the next, I see somewhere you're going for altitude next?
Yeah, we're trying 6 records. Okay, 2 are altitude, 2 are speed, and then 2 are time to climb. These from when you're stopped, you get to 10,000 feet and 20,000 feet. Those are 2 records. We're going to try all 6 of those and see what happens.
I hope you get a recharging station after the climb competition.
Well, he has regenerative stuff, isn't he? Would you? So, if a flight profile, then, if you had in the future when we're all flying electric airplanes, then would you perhaps give yourself enough recharging from top of descent to get you around the circuit and taxi home and stuff like that? Would you use that as as something you could change because you're going to reach it? Because a normal petrol you don't get more. Oh, did I see you had an electric fueling probe as well?
Yeah. How many? There's a lot of questions wrapped up in there. Yeah. Sorry. The regen. So the regen is good. It's not the holy grail. There's a couple problems with it, but one is, so our propeller, we can only regen about 50 amps. So we're spending, you know, about 500 amps to climb to set world records, and then descending we're putting 50 in. But that's because our propeller isn't pitched for reverse thrust. So if we were to have a variable pitch propeller, we could pitch it to optimize it for the regen. I think we could get we could get quite a bit. We could get a couple hundred amps out. Okay, that's one thing. But more importantly, as you know, the C rate that you charge lithium ion batteries at is directly related to how long they last. So, you know, even if you could zoom down and put 600 amps in, your pack could not accept that without building up a tremendous amount of impedance. And so when we raced the motorcycle, we were doing that. We were putting kinetic energy in. We were under braking. We were putting 200 amps back in the pack. And we took a $50,000 Dow Kokum pack and totally destroyed it in just about 3 months. So you can regen, but it's not as simple as, you know, some of the guys they draw graphics and it's like the plane takes off and then when it's empty and then you descend and then you recharge your battery pack. It doesn't work like that. And recharging is not 100% efficient anyway, but it's damn good, but it's not, it's not that simple.
And then Chris says somebody needs to develop a mid-air battery swap. I wonder if that could happen.
Yeah, well, you know, we were joking around when I did my TED Talk. I found a graphic of a guy, the very first mid-air refueling was a guy flying in an airplane next to another guy and climbing off the wing with a jerry can of gas in his hand. So, yeah, I mean,
thinking of reapplication with your gliders.
Yeah.
Like you got 8,000 pounds there in a glider, you could drop that off and you know, meet up with it in flight. There's your battery pack.
Well, you don't need it. Well, why do you need to carry it all? Why don't you drop a battery pack and send it off somewhere else?
When you find, I did this. I laid this out in the TED Talk that I did, and it's a flying across the Atlantic in an electric airplane using drones to recharge and sort of battery swap on the way over. And, you know, it was insane. It's a crazy idea. It actually would work, but it falls under that principle of just because you can doesn't mean you should. You know, so why should we do that? Maybe we should. I don't know, but I kind of don't think we should. But it was fun thinking about it and doing the math.
Why should Tesla put a Roadster in space?
I have no idea.
Yeah.
Who knows?
And it was fun.
Yeah. I mean, he sells stock. I mean, he does a great job.
I think we are on the cusp of a few technology changes, aren't we? Really, with the electric revolution, it is coming. Whether it's quite how some of the infographics I see say it's going to be, I'm not sure. But something is coming one way or another.
Is it a revolution or is it just a bit of a reset? Because I mean, all the old milk vans used to be electric before there were petrol. The submarines that fought in World War II were all electric. Like, really? Have we actually gone anywhere? Or we just realised that petrol's stupid and we're just doing a bit of a reset?
Even Silent Arrow people look at our Silent Arrow glider and they say, "Oh yeah, they had that in World War II." You know, did they? You're kidding me.
Yeah.
And look, at the end of the day, I mean, you know, what's new in this world? We improve on existing ideas and we try new stuff. And the petrol engine was a great new invention. And it was innovative and has done a lot for mankind, possibly. But at the same time, we've also learned that there were negatives to the idea, and we've re-looked at some of the existing stuff and said, hey, maybe we can do this better, and maybe people don't need cars that do 800 kilometers every single trip. Maybe people don't need planes that can do 20,000 kilometers every single trip. You know, maybe there's room for different technologies in the middle, and I think that's where electric really fits in. There's just many applications where it fits. The small hop, or you know, the tight spaces. You just don't want the noise and the mess of petrol. If we can get away from exploding batteries, then we can, you know, supposedly make it safer. But even with electric aircraft, if you have lithium cells spread all over the place, there's not going to be a spread out gas fire. You know, it's still going to be safer. So there's lots of things to be said for it, but I'm not sure that we're really inventing new things. We still don't have pod races happening, but we'll get there.
Yeah, well said.
After you, Chip.
Yeah, no, I just said well said. Well, I agree.
Okay. Yeah. It's yeah. So I suppose we might be more, or in 200, 300 years time, people might say, well, look at the environmental damage done by all of these things, and what were they thinking? And that might be the lesson that was learnt. But who knows? That's a bit too serious.
What were they thinking on mining all that lithium?
Yes. Well, yeah. There's many arguments, isn't there? And eVTOLs and flying taxis rely on people traveling like they currently do to go to work. I personally don't think they will. I think that will go away. I think youngsters, my 18-year-olds and that, just won't. They'll work online. It'll all happen. They won't need to travel. I think the commuting problem will go away. But maybe that's an outlier.
Except if you have to do real work, like industrial work, where your presence is required. Unless you go to completely Arthur C. Clarke and the robot overlords take over, and we go to the beach and some exotic locations like Durban or some places like that, Gary.
Yeah. FX Knows just saying hydrogen fuel cells lighter than batteries, and Gorilla Drone saying cars as a service soon. I think I agree with that. But hydrogen fuel cells and cars as a service. Comments go.
I think hydrogen makes sense as a fuel. It makes perfect sense in the longer term. It's proven quite safe compared to everything else. One of the advantages, you have a leak, it goes up. It doesn't settle around on the crash scene. So there's definitely advantages there. When it goes boom, that's a bit of a problem. But other than that,
well, it goes boom in a similar way that petrol vapor does. So it's not that much of a boom.
Come on, Gary. Yeah. Think the Hindenburg.
The Hindenburg. It always comes up, and it has nothing to do with the hydrogen.
That's only because the Americans wouldn't let them have helium. That's the
only reason. It's always our fault. It's always our fault.
But he's not here tonight. Normally Bruce is here, and it's always Bruce's fault. So it can be.
Ian's here. He's been very quiet.
He is being
so
very
it's the Bruce's fault.
Well, I was going to add that I'm sure you could solve this battery problem with blockchain.
Yeah, of course. Yes.
AI and
AI, a little bit of AI. Yeah, I mean, you can't solve it with blockchain and IA.
We have to stop using AI, and now it's more fashionable to just use deep learning.
Oh yes.
So much sexier than artificial intelligence.
I saw that this week as well. There were loads of articles about deep learning. So it has changed. Right, okay, deep learning. Forget AI, deep learning. Deep learning. That's what we all need. Fair enough. It's it's a funny old world. So Ian, tell us something amusing. Have you not got a quiz?
Oh no. I'm not prepared at all this time. I came very late. I figured I was very unshaven and I was looking like a pirate. And I didn't yeah, so exactly.
What are you saying? What are you saying?
Somebody think they were tuning into a fishing show, so I thought, well, here we are. Oh, and I've got my anamorphic lenses. There we go.
There you go. There they are. I'm glad you bought them. Paul Johnson saying, I think it's hard to get 600 amps from a fuel cell.
Not from one fuel cell, but you can parallel a lot of them. So that's
the other thing people need to keep in mind when you're flying or when you're driving, you're not always pulling 600 amps. You don't need that. You need your cruise power. You need just a little bit above cruise power so you can charge up enough for those times you need a little bit more power in flight, or to recover what you used on takeoff. You don't even necessarily need to recover what you used on takeoff. You just have to have enough to continue your flight safely and land safely. So you don't necessarily need 600 amps. 150 amps might be enough. I don't know. What's your cruise speed on your your cruise current setting on your power? Yeah, I'll stop talking now. I can't get this.
Yeah, I think, during takeoff, if I take off easy, it's 300 something amps. And then, once you get up, you can level off. And yeah, like I said, I could pull 100 amps. And it's really, when you look at what I'm doing, it's like record setting and I'm trying to push limits and all that stuff. I'm not trying to do anything necessarily that's very practical, So if you're doing a time to climb, we're pulling 600 amps, continuously for 4 minutes or 3 minutes. And so that's not that practical. You got to take it with a grain of salt,
Yeah. I mean, if we're looking at doing this from the point of view of proving that electric is good for aviation, then the type of aircraft you'd go is like a Gippsland Aeronautics air van or something like that. Like the 10-seat air van would be a great aircraft to electrify, because you've got the physical room to put the batteries in there. You've got room to actually put a hydrogen fuel cell tank and the bits and pieces in there. And then you've possibly got room to actually pretend to put some passengers or something. But you're not going to do that in a long easy, because long easies were not designed for that purpose. So,
no.
Yeah, no, there's got to be retrofitting of old aircraft. I don't understand why we're trying to, again, reinvent the wheel with doing new stuff. Why reinvent the stuff that already works very well with some new crew? So all right, I tell you what, let's have some fancy new control system, some fancy new propulsion system with some weird out there aerodynamic thing that we've just invented. Why not combine as many different things as possible into our experimental aircraft? It just strikes me as madness.
Because some people have that crazy syndrome of the not invented here.
Well, I think there is that, and as regards the air taxis, which I keep coming back to, and drone deliverables, there we are, Silent Arrow already at £2,000 or something like that. Let's get moving some meaningful amounts of cargo about before we try and move people about. It's
exactly.
That is a lot of burritos you could deliver. You could deliver a lot of burritos.
You're making me hungry.
And there's already air taxis around called helicopters that operate in most major cities. Las Vegas, you can get a helicopter from pretty much anywhere to anywhere. Like, the systems already exist. We don't need new air taxi services at the moment. We've already got them. But air delivery systems using unmanned systems just makes sense, and it's the perfect place to start.
Absolutely, and the perfect place to start that is in Africa at the Lake Victoria Challenge, where not only are prizes available this year. In fact, this next year is now this year, but there's contracts. There were 8 countries from around the lake, the most populous region on Earth, amazingly, rural region, shall we say, other than the city. And then there's no infrastructure. The roads aren't there. The railways aren't there. Yes, there are small airfields. So stuff does need to be delivered. And that's my little plug for that.
It's that area of Africa that got me into this in the first place. I grew up in Moshi, just on the slopes of Mount Kilimanjaro. And Cessna 206s were our life. We couldn't get anywhere without them, and that's how I got into aviation. That's why I became a pilot and an aircraft engineer. How I got stuck into this stuff. So, so Lake Victoria is home for me. I'd love to get up there.
Well, do you reckon we'll see you then at this one? That'd be great to see you there, Philip.
I would love to. I've got no idea what's happening this year. Just can't believe it's February already. Got an air show to sit through in a booth for 6 days coming up at the Avalon International Air Show.
It's a good one. My friend ran out of fuel on the runway there in Hunter, having come down from the top of the country, and he actually ran out of fuel. He knew it was going to be close.
and then you introduced him to me with that story.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Right.
So we'll actually have, if anyone who's watching this is going to be at Avalon Air Show, Michael Oborne will be there with me on the booth for the full 6 days, which will be pretty cool. There's probably many people have heard of Michael and used his products, but never actually had a chance to meet him. So Michael's now working with me full time. He's been relying on that little sponsor button on Mission Planner for from the very beginning of Argopilot, and not many people pressed that. It was sort of averaging him about $2,500 a year, and when you consider the number of businesses that have been built up based on Mission Planner, that's sort of pretty sad, really. So so we've brought him on full time now, which is really cool. Great to have him on board, and he'll be at the air show with me. They're introducing our new brand name that we're heading towards, which is Cube Pilot. So
can I be rude and say, now you're sponsoring him, can we have a nice UI for it, please?
There are going to be a lot of changes to Mission Planner coming, and not all of them will be UI. The classic UI is probably going to hang around for an awful long time because more people than are complaining about the UI love the UI, and they rely on it, and they rely on the fact that it is consistent, and the consistency is very important. That's one thing in aviation why we're complaining about your whole twiddling cat knobs is because we're used to it the way it was. And that's aviation in a nutshell, is we like it the way it was. And it doesn't matter that it might be 1940s technology or 1910 technology. It's the way it was, and that's the way it stays. But we also obviously know people like it.
So it could have the standard UIs you have now, or you can select another UI, and people can, you could even have it so there were modules that were brought in, so then people can actually actively add to that.
What people don't know is that already exists. Mission Planner already has a skinning function, and there already are like 40 or 50 versions of Mission Planner out there that are running on tablets and running on all sorts of things in all sorts of touchscreen friendly ways that have been done as little customized things. But Michael hasn't really had the chance to actually bring all of that in his few hours a week that he can actually dedicate to that with a full-time job. So a lot of that will be coming. Ironically, he's been working for us now for 1 month, I think, officially. So there's a lot of stuff coming, and we've got him very busy already on lots of things. So hopefully he'll get some time on Mission Planner in some of that. So
the trouble is, it's going to be all things to all people, isn't it? It's the only one that's going to do cars and boats and submarines and helicopters and planes and multi-rotors, and
and it has to do all the developer functions. It has to have all the little cheat codes for doing things easily for developers, but there's no real way to put all of that on the screen at one time. And so the challenge is going to be, how do we think about making that more practical for everyone? Many people don't actually realize that Mission Planner is already multi-platform. It runs on Linux, it runs on Windows, it runs on Mac. It will be running on other platforms as well. It's all being re-architectured to do all of that. But all of that does take time, and we're not promising any great results probably within the next year. So don't want anyone to expect anything radical within the next year, but then there will be some pretty cool stuff after that.
It's been mentioned in the comments, and Gorilla Drones also says the NHS talking at the National Health Service in the UK is talking about medical deliveries in Scotland. And funny enough, the electric Islander, which is coming, is going to operate for Loganair routes in Scotland. So Scotland is going to...
How will that fly? The Islander relies on acoustic lift.
I thought it relied on the Earth repelling it.
It was that too. It was a bit of a combination of just being so damn noisy that the Earth didn't like it. And
it's so ugly. Yeah, so the Earth repelled it. So
the Trilander flew so much better because it was even uglier.
I think the last ones have just gone out of service of those.
It's actually the first aircraft I was officially paid to work on was an Islander. So I have a love-hate relationship with those aircraft.
I've had some amusing times flying in those things. I'll tell you two stories. Pull up a sandbag. Story number one, island on Lake Victoria. My chum lands, and the brakes have just been serviced the week before in Nairobi, and the brakes pop out as we land, or no longer wish to work. And we do use the arrestor trees at the end of the runway to land and stop, rather. And when the stop happened, he said to the people, "Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Rasinga Island," which I thought was very, very professional, as the trees fell down on the aircraft. And we used to, they're so good in ground effect that you couldn't, if you got low enough. We used to fly across the Mara, running the wheels on the ground. But anyway, it's a great.
Back in the days before aviation regulations in Africa. Oh
no, we still don't have them. And then also another time when it was raining so hard. Luckily, I had my coat on, so I could put it on, whereas the passengers couldn't, with all the rain coming in through the thing. Just those are the days. Anyway, I'll get off my sandbag now. Now I love the Islander. It's at least it's tough, and so it's going to be a great electric aeroplane. And it's got, as you said, it's got the space to put the batteries in and all that sort of a thing. And the islands and
like a tank.
Well, they've got some of the shortest airline routes in the world of 6 or 7 minutes from one island to another. So it's perfect, landing on the beach and all that sort of thing. So very interesting to watch that. And I was also interested that the next aircraft in that series is going to be the Twin Otter, another fantastic aircraft. Why do we need to reinvent all these things? Why do we need to reinvent them? I don't get it. I don't get it. But
well, the aircraft of missions and aid organisations, the Pilatus Porter, the Twin Otter, the Cessna 206, the Islander, just they're classic aircraft, and they just work. The Hercules, an electric Hercules. There you go. Maybe not, but they're just classic aircraft, and they are doing really short hops, especially in places like Papua New Guinea. You're literally going from mountaintop to mountaintop to mountaintop to mountaintop. They're not long flights, so yeah.
Yeah, but they're insanely dangerous flights, aren't they? And that's why you would want to make them autonomous, because ideally, and perhaps the weather criteria for that mountaintop it's tight enough as it is, and then if you have a real emergency and the weather's awful, no one's going to launch to that mountaintop. So you need to have your electric silent arrow going there with its 2,000 pounds worth of cargo to do it, and it'll come, and emergencies always are a trump card to regulators. Suddenly your regulations go away when a life needs to be. They don't go away, but they get bent when a life needs to be saved.
Well, a risk assessment is based on cost of human life, and if there's a guaranteed someone will die if this does not happen, that has to weigh into the risk assessment. The risk assessment of sending an unmanned aircraft to save someone who will die is a pretty easy risk assessment in any person's mind, unless of course you're flying over the middle of New York to do this. But if you're somewhere like Papua New Guinea or Lake Victoria or something like that, it's a no-brainer.
Well, yeah, I mean, in the big cities around the world, you've got other ways of doing it, and you probably hop on a train by the time you launch it or something. You've got other ways of doing it that in built-up areas with infrastructure that it will change. I'm getting all a bit ranty, aren't I? I'm getting very, very ranty. I am going to ask. Look, it's half. We've gone an hour and a half. We've gone way too late. I'm going to ask.
I apologise about the barking, and I've just lost my mouse, so I can't even mute.
Is that why? So is the dog chasing the mouse? Is that what you're talking about there? Is that you keep a dog in a cupboard? That's terrible. You cruel man. You're keeping a dog in a cupboard. That's awful. All right. Does anyone else see anything else this week that caught their eye at all? Go in once. Oh, Ines, go on in.
Yeah. And I've been quiet on this episode, not to mention regulatory things. So it could be a hardware episode. But yeah, just a bit of news today was the supply is ready to the UK, and that Node have got onto the campaign, which was started on the show here, which was mentioned in the change to the DFT wording, where they've made it so that drones, below 251 grams now have to get ATC permission from the 1 to 5 kilometers. I think people at the moment aren't quite understanding it, which is the main problem in getting signatures. But at least they're on the case, and every person that signs up to that and ticks yes, and I'll be helping the cause of hopefully getting some common sense.
Oh my word! Again, we don't like common sense here, but yes, let's hope the hopefully it doesn't kill the hobby. Basically, this is the bottom line.
Ian, my advice to you: get out of Europe fast, because things will be much worse in Europe.
It's called Brexit.
Yeah. So take the chance of the Brexit and run away.
I'm waiting for Philip to offer me a testing job over there, so I can move to Australia and be his next door neighbour.
Well, it's funny. I was going to say, when you're making comments about if only you could do UIs and stuff like this and stuff like that, so well, if only you knew somebody that was a developer, if only we knew someone like you that had the skills to do that.
Well, I'm not a developer. I'm a tester, although I have some good skills, and I've got enough graphic design skills where I think I could definitely do a better UI. I'll tell you that much.
Well, I'm not a developer. Very good at crashing stuff.
My comment on the UI when it comes to Mission Planner is we've had 8 years of people having opportunities to put pull requests in and actually participate in funding to make it better. So no one clearly wants a better UI because no one's actually going to put their money where their mouth is.
That's your engineer head talking again. People that design UIs are artistic people. They're not people that know even what a pull request is. They're not going to go onto GitHub and put it. You need to have a feature on Mission Planner where it imports, where you can have it as JPEGs, PNGs, or PSD, Photoshop, where it pulls it in and displays, or within some sort of framework like that, or CSS, or something where people that aren't necessarily coders can add to it. So that's the issue there. If you look at a lot of forum software, like what was vBulletin, I think it's changed out, and all the others, they can be skinned, but they can be skinned by people that are just not very much into code, but very much into graphics. It's having that ability as well, I think, if you see what I mean.
We'll get there.
The wife's a sculptor. Will that help? Anyway, on that note, I'm going to say, going once, going twice. Does anyone else have anything else? And boom, we're out of here. Chip, thank you very, very much. We are not worthy. What an honour to have you on board with us. Hopefully we can have you again. What we really should have been promoting was the silent arrow, not talking about your fast stuff. Oh, hang on, someone's got something, I don't know. He's got a package from China or something. What have you got there, Philip? What are you showing off? It's a bottom of a connector or something. Is this some sort of thing where you're not going to reveal it for a month or two? It probably is.
It's the bottom of the cube anyway. I know that much.
No, it's his TV. It's a new TV remote or something like that. That's what it is. Some rubbish like that. Something he's got off eBay, isn't it? That's what it is. Greg, thank you very much.
And, made in USA.
Oh, made in USA. Oh, yeah, there you go. There you go.
It's the real deal. It's finally actually shipping made in USA, made in California.
There we go. That's the blue one then, isn't it?
It's the blue. Though in here, yeah, it does show up blue here. In here, it looks a little bit black. It's quite a dark blue. So
why would you go to the expense of shipping that back to Australia then? Anyway, that's great. Thanks very much indeed. Hopefully you get to do more of your thing, the plant stuff rather than the emergency stuff. But thanks for everything you've done. It's amazing work, and everyone that's works with you. I know it's not just yourself. Louis, we haven't seen your helicopter. Ian, you haven't argued too much. Philip,
can I one thing though?
Oh, here we go then. Go on then.
I think we do need an award for the best sideburns on the show, and Chip definitely owns that one.
Does he?
Oh my God! Thank you.
Here it is. Here it is. Here it is right now.
You guys know Guy Martin? These are Guy Martin.
I wasn't going to mention Guy Martin, but you did. There you go.
I'm a big fan of Guy Martin.
Yeah, you're sort of a guy, isn't he? All right,
Yeah.
dear viewers, everybody, thank you very much for joining us, guys. Have a lovely, safe rest of the week. If you're flying this weekend, enjoy your flights. Don't forget, join us again, 2100 GMT next week. Dear viewers, bye-bye. Thanks. Cheers, everyone. Bye-bye.
See you later, guys.
Bye.